This podcast is brought to you by Hills Community Aid and has been funded by Castle Hill RSL.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the first podcast of Good Men Don't. Thank you for connecting. It's great that you're here, and hopefully we'll over the coming period we'll give you some things to think about and challenge your thoughts. So, Good Men Don't. What it's all about? The first thing is that it's a podcast that's designed specifically for men. And if you're not a man and you're watching, that's okay. Stay there, watch for it. But we want to focus on two areas. The first area we're going to focus on is how to build respectful relationships. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, we want to spend time on talking about abuse and domestic violence in society today. So I think that's going to be fairly important as we move through this. So at the base of all that, for me, is the word respect. Because if you think about what is a respectful relationship about, then I think respect is at the very foundation of it. So for me, at the core, I guess, of respect is that we can have conversations with others, so we can value and appreciate others' points of view, even if we have different opinions. But we can at least have that conversation, and in those conversations we'll treat people with consideration, kindness and some love. So before we move on, I'd just like to pay our respects to the traditional owners of the land here, the Dara Nation, and on behalf of the whole team here, pay our respects to their elders past, present and future. I guess the podcast is about casting light onto what's been referred to as an epidemic of domestic violence in Australia. Late last year or middle of last year, the Prime Minister got, I think at that stage there was a number of murders of women, and the Prime Minister got involved and said we had a national crisis on our hands. And not long after that, in early this year, Susan Lee, the leader of the opposition, talked about it as being Australia's shame. And interesting enough that she identified as at the National Press Club around about March this year, that she personally knew the pain of coercive control. And I think that's really important that people in those levels of leadership in our country do identify very strongly with what the problem we have here. So you're going to be staggered by the size of the problem. I don't know how much you know about domestic violence and abuse, but certainly what we're going to do, we're going to bring you up to speed. So stay tuned, and we're going to give you lots of stats over the coming conversations we'll have. Now, at different times you're going to hear us talk about the Hills Shire, and that's primarily because of I guess the main reason is the Castle Hill RSL have generously provided Hills Community Aid with some initial funding through the Club Grants program. So we're using that money to bring this podcast to you. We're very appreciative of the support they've given us. So whilst we focus on the Hills area specifically, we want to say that much of the discussion we'll have is broadly applicable wherever you are in Australia or overseas. So that's what we're going to be talking about over the next period of time. My name is Warren. I'm one of your hosts today. There are two hosts. My other host is Levi. And Levi, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and why you're here today.
Hi everyone, it's nice to be here finally. Really excited to I guess talk a bit about our issues on domestic violence and abuse. I guess a bit about me, Warren. I guess I'm studying right now. I'm doing community service. It is something I've always wanted to do. Yep. Prior to this, I was in, I guess, the administration side of life insurance. That was quite interesting in the city, 9 to 5, your classic kind of job. It was good, just wasn't me. I always figured I'd be part of the community and doing something that is a bit closer to my heart. And then I guess, I stumbled across this project, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you and all of our viewers tuning in. So excited for what's ahead.
Oh, that's very fantastic. Can I ask you just one question?
Sure.
What would be the most unique gift that you bring to this program?
Oh, that's a big one. Unique? I I don't think there's anything unique about this. Maybe I think I'm quite positive, and I always try to look at things at the positive way. You know, when things aren't always looking great, I'll try to find something and work on that. And sometimes it can get demotivating, but I like to stay pretty motivated because yeah, we're all just trying our best. We're all moving forward. So
Well, a couple of first of all, Levi, you're a young bloke. I can see that. How old are you now?
I'm just turned 27.
Terrific.
So
Yeah, a whole life in front of you. I'm a little bit older, as you can see. For those who are, if you're watching this on video, I got a little bit of grey hair. But between Levi and myself, we've probably got about 100 years of experience to share. And this is just our observations, and we want to share some of those with you. We're not experts in any way. We just want to help present and help you to understand this topic. I guess my background is mainly in corporate world. I spent 35 years in banking and finance. After that, I moved on and ran my own business as a business coach.
wow.
Then after that, I spent, when I retired, last 20 odd years working in social activities, I guess, social work. So I guess the things that have really interested me in my retirement has been working in this field, not so much in domestic violence, but just working in the areas of social justice.
Yeah.
Because I see this as a fairly major issue in that area. So I've spent time in not-for-profits working in their boards and things like that.
Wow.
And so this is just another opportunity to do something a little bit differently. So I guess that's my background. The thing that I guess is interesting is you talked a little bit your involvement or your interest in the podcast.
Yeah.
My sort of introduction to this was initially through a migration organisation. So these were providing settlement advice. And in that demographic, there is a significant amount of domestic violence occurs. So, and I worked at that organisation on their board for about 14 years, but I could see the issues there. So, a few years ago, probably a year and a half, the Hills Community Aid asked me to have a look at a project that they had going called Good Men Project, and I liked it. It was really good. It was a series of comments and from a whole range of people, teenage boys right through to adults, about what's it like to be a good man in today's society. And when I looked at that, one of the things I like doing is I like looking at things and finding ways to actually improve and change. And I said to Community Aid that, maybe we can get something that focuses more on trying to change behaviours at the front end, the behaviours of men, because it seems to me that's where the problem starts. So we discussed it. We came up with the idea of maybe developing a podcast.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
Here
We're trying
we
to
are.
put something, get the rubber on the road, so to speak, and get that moving. So I guess in terms of doing that, I guess the things that for me were particularly important is that I think men need to be encouraged. And now I'm talking men generally.
Yeah.
Men, they just need to be encouraged to speak up and understand abuse and domestic violence.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Definitely. That was definitely packed. You were saying how much you've done. You've been in, I guess, this area of work for the last 20 years, which is very different to me, just starting out versus you being here for a while. So I think that dynamic is going to be quite interesting, that we'll be able to work together. As for what you're saying, I completely agree, where it is important that we need to, I guess, hold ourselves accountable and recognize the statistics of what's going on around us. And yeah, likewise, that's why I feel like this podcast is just a great space to have a chat where we can all feel comfortable, understand each other's perspectives. And it's not to come at the people who feel like they have been the perpetrator or victim. It's just a place where we can all grow and just educate ourselves. And I think that's really important moving forward, because I think education really is at the forefront of how we can progress
Yep.
next.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing we've talked about is that because this is essentially a man's problem, that's where it's emanating from, that men need to be part of the solution. And if we can find a way to create a conversation and get people talking about it and then being actively involved, then hopefully we're going to get somewhere. Now, we talked there a lot about we're focusing on men, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
Let's sort of understand why that's the case. So we did a bit of research, as you remember.
We have, yeah.
Yeah. So can you maybe just talk a little bit about that?
So we found on our stats, actually, I don't have the sheet on me. Do you have the? Great, thank you. So this is from the Bureau of Crime Statistics, not us giving you these random stats, but there were, in 2020, there were 32,017 reports of domestic violent assault. What is that? How 32,000 or just over 32,000? It's 365 days in a year.
And that's reported.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the real number?
What is? Yeah. Exactly right. I know we are like coming into an age where it's important. Like we are being told, speak up if you are being abused, but it's not as simple as like, oh, I can speak up, I can go talk to someone. Some people feel like they can't, or they might get in trouble. There's all those different factors. But yeah, there was that. And it has been increasing. So what do you think the percentage of domestic violence has been increasing by?
Well, initially I thought maybe 2 or 3%, but I've had a look at the stats
Warren.
too.
Yeah, you've seen this.
And we know it's sort of like a 20% increase over 4 years.
Yeah.
That's huge. Now, and just going back to that issue of are those stats accurate or not? So I think from that point of view. But the interesting thing is whether it's the right number or not. When we tapped down a little bit further on those figures, we found that men, as the perpetrator, featured 75% of the time.
Right. Do you have? I guess it is interesting. 75% of the time, it's 1/4. Oh, sorry. That is not strong. 3/4. Yeah, that is an interesting statistic. Why do you feel like that's the case? Because I've I guess come up with my idea a little bit, but I guess with your advanced years on me, is that an appropriate thing to say? I guess with your time, why do you think it's going up instead of down?
In terms of the number?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think there's probably a number of things. I think as time's moved on, we've been able to put words and labels around certain things. So we understand things better. We have a far better knowledge. And I think as we've become to identify and look closer at victims and learn their stories, that's made us start to actually delve into it more and raise things to the surface a lot more. And I think that's happened. And that's a good thing. We need to do more of that because only through that way can we start to learn. And then, now we're going to learn more about that in one of the episodes that'll come where we have a person that's just going to talk about domestic violence and abuse and how it happens and how it emanates and sources and where it comes from. So I'd rather leave that to that person who's more qualified to talk about that later on. I think the other thing I wanted to talk about and just bring to light around this issue of why we're focusing on men, besides the 75%.
Yeah.
Can you remember, like it was about mid last year, that was 2024, when there were, as I recall it, there were 3 women killed in the same week.
Yeah. Wow.
Now those 3 women, they were killed by either their current partner, male, or their former partner, male. At the same time, I think everyone was reporting, and in all the newspapers, and if you've just watched the news any time during that time, you would have heard that the quote that they were saying was that 1 woman was killed in Australia by a male partner or former partner
Yeah.
every week.
Wow.
One a week.
Wow. That's not okay. You did say there's a lot you just mentioned. You said we are learning. You said a lot of we as a community are understanding the difference and the definitions of abuse and violence. However, going back to the education part of things, do you think men are becoming more aware of what this abuse is? Because the stats are there where it's increasing and it's mostly males who are doing it. Do you feel as though if there was more education for men surrounding it, it would decrease? Because for me personally, I don't know much out there for men to learn what the types of abuses are. For a bit of time, I thought, and now it's changing, which is great. But for a bit of time when I was younger, I thought abuse was just like physical, and that was in my early stages of learning, where it's like, oh, this is where you're supposed to learn a lot. Whereas now, if you go to like an adult, they're less inclined to learn. They feel like, all right, I know what it is. And when you feel like you know something, you're not going to do further research. But when a situation where maybe things get heated and you've never come across a situation like this, you might say or do something. And this is where I think the abuse or violence may come in, because they may not think it's that, but it just really is. And that's where these stats are growing. So in terms of education, do you think that plays a huge part for these adults, for the stat of the 30 to 49-year-olds who are the biggest perpetrators for their partners?
Absolutely. And I think for me that's the fundamental basis of this whole podcast, is that we can reach people, because I believe everyone can grow. I believe everyone can develop.
I agree.
And that comes through exposure. We're going to hear from a reformed abuser later on in the series, and he's a guy who was abusing his wife. He didn't know it. He didn't know he was doing it, but she pointed out to him the fact that one day either you change or I'm out of here. And he was smart enough to actually, became aware of this problem. He then sought some help.
Yeah.
He accepted he had a problem, and he sought help and changed. Yeah. So I see him as being a real light on the hill, that one person can do it, many others can. So I guess, guys, we're going to be talking to a whole range of people, and some might be, you may have a leaning towards abuse and violence. Yeah. So maybe some of this conversation will be useful for you. And also we're going to be talking to other people who are good, solid citizens and have really excellent relationships. And we're going to be talking to you as well. And we just hope that through this process we can make all that better. Yeah. One thing I wanted to say is that while we're focusing on men in this, we want to acknowledge that domestic violence and abuse exists in the opposite. So a woman can be doing the same as a perpetrator to a male, and in same-sex marriages. So, but the fact that like 75%, as we know, are males, we just want to focus on there. Well, Levi, it's been a great conversation so far, and we've talked a lot about the podcast in general terms. But I think it's going to be really useful to our listeners for them to get a good sense of what the objectives are, what we're trying to achieve with this podcast. So, look, can you sort of fill us in on that?
Yeah, we've got quite a few objectives, but the main ones being education. Encourage an active voice in the conversation, be a part of the solution. It's really important for men and everyone just to have a chat and learn and talk more about it. It just doesn't happen often, but this is what we're about, and we're trying to create that space for everyone. It's also about creating respectful relationships. It's understanding what a respectful relationship is, what things you can do or you should do, shouldn't do, and it's to highlight good male role models. It gives people an understanding of, again, what's good and what's not. It, I guess, also is for those who feel they have tendencies towards, I guess, physical violence or abuse, where it's never okay to do, but we're here to help educate and understand that it's happening around us. So our objective is just to assist, provide resources for those who are, maybe unknowing, just want to listen, want to learn more, or those who are the perpetrator or victim. We're just here to help in education. Did you have any more objectives that I may have missed out on?
No, I think you've covered that really well. I think the important part right up front is that whole aspect of building respectful relationships, and I think that's really important as we grow and mature and develop, and maybe even start when you're starting a relationship with a new boyfriend or girlfriend, then you're going to set some boundaries and you're going to set some foundations. And I guess that's what we're talking about here, is still setting those foundations such that that relationship can blossom and grow.
Just with that, setting the foundations, what was it like for you? Because you're married, and how was that setting? How did you build that foundation? Because we're actually in very different positions where you're married. I have been in relationships, but it didn't work for whatever reasons. What do you think helped you personally, Warren?
Ooh. Well, how do I answer that question? I think when I was married, Levi, I wasn't terribly smart enough to actually think about all these foundational things in our early days before we got married. Like, there was no marriage guidance as there is these days.
Wow.
That just wasn't around. So you tended to sort of learn off your parents and observe what's happening. And what made it worse is that on the day we got married, up in Queensland, we actually moved to New South Wales.
Wow.
And we came to Sydney, and we had absolutely no relatives in Sydney that would help us.
Wow.
So it was trial and error. But I guess because my wife and I have very similar values, then we're able to work our way through developing trust, being open to each other, listening to each other, communicating well, and doing all those sort of things that I think that you have to do to build a solid relationship so that you can start to build on it.
Wow.
So for me, they were the sorts of ways that we learned, trial and error. I must admit, I've been married 59 years now, 60 coming up. And happily married. And I just think that that process that we went through was really useful. But not everyone has the same opportunities that we do, or the same sort of mindset. Yeah. So I was just so appreciative of the way in which my wife was prepared to sit and share her views and her values and her characteristics, such that we could blend how we're going to be a family in the future.
Yeah. That sounds amazing, Warren. Like, that sounds like a dream, to be honest. Like, you find someone, you marry them, and you're happily married. Awesome. For me, it's slightly different, right? You said the family, it plays a big role, but some people's situations are just different. And for me personally, I had, my mum and 4 brothers, and that dynamic of loving, and don't get me wrong, she did love us, but it's a different dynamic to having a mum and a dad. And I think what I missed out on was seeing how you're supposed to treat a girl, a mum, or what a dads are supposed to do. So for me, it's a huge learning curve. And being young, I think there's a lot of trial and error. That's something we can agree on. But I found myself in my younger years, and still here and there, making quite a few mistakes. I think it's normal to be making these mistakes. Is it? Yeah, I mean, there was quite a few mistakes where I definitely could have done things better. And, you know, I could say, oh, you know, they could have done things better. But it's accountability, right?
Yep,
Like,
yep. Okay, can I just interrupt you there for a second?
yeah,
When you made a mistake, did you sort of reflect on it and learn from that mistake?
absolutely not. Not initially. I was angry. I was upset.
But eventually?
Eventually.
Fantastic.
Eventually. And you know what? It takes some time. And it takes some understanding and it takes some education, because if you don't want to learn and just accept that, you know, this is wrong, then you're going to be the hero of your own story. Everyone, not everyone, but like there's something that gets said, everyone's the hero of their own story. And I actually think about that a lot when so there are going to be sadistic people who do want to cause harm and all that. But I guess personally, it's hard to paint yourself as a villain because people don't want to be the villain. So yeah, it took me ages to learn, and a lot more mistakes and a lot more of the same mistakes only up until a certain age or a certain time period of my life where I was like, no, there needs to be change. And yeah, it's not easy because, you know, I look back and I think, man, it was hard. There was a lot of stuff, and I can't blame the situation at home. I can't blame anything other than who I am and who I was as a person. I think, yes, mistakes were made, but it's all about learning. And like you said, you know, did you learn? Took me some time. But there's no better time to start than right now.
Yeah, and I think too, if you stop and think about it, is that everyone who's listening has a different story.
Yeah.
They've all trod a different path, and they have different experiences. And there's this nature and nurture component, and where you learn, and what's bred into you, if there's such a thing, and then what you experience from your from the world and how you learn things. So that's probably a topic for a different podcast at some stage.
Yeah.
But I think they're just really interesting topics. So with that, can we just move on and just talk about respect? So, and the reason I want to talk about that is because I think at the base of everything we're talking about, to me, is the issue of respect and what's happened in the community. And I thought about this sort of last night. I was listening to something on the radio, which is totally unrelated.
That's the age part coming in for us.
Absolutely.
The radio, yeah.
So it was totally unrelated, but this person was talking about the lack of respect that seems to be happening in football. Mainly, not so much in the football.
What's football to you? This is gonna be another area. Which football?
Oh, I don't mind. I've lived in Australia, I've lived in New South Wales, I've lived in Queensland, I've lived in Victoria, and I've lived overseas. So at different times I have followed rugby league, rugby union, soccer or football.
that's what I was waiting for.
So
we need the answers, Warren.
So this person was talking about not so much on the field respect, but what was happening in the people who go to watch the game. And the lack of respect that's sort of starting to show itself in the way in which the observers or the people at the game are reacting. And these days you see bottles thrown at players and things like that. Umpires, you know, one of the things that my granddaughter used to play netball.
Yeah.
And I used to go along to that, and I love netball.
Yeah.
No, it's not a ball game. But the thing I liked about netball was they have a very rigorous process about respect. They don't call it respect, but you cannot, if you're an observer, you're just watching a game, you cannot start to make adverse comments about the umpires, because the umpires will stop the game and they'll have you sent off the court.
You need
totally.
Right.
Yeah, so, you know, when I see other aspects, then I think respect has changed. So Let me just give you an example. Would that be useful?
Sure. Yeah.
So if I just think back when I was a teenager, and I think back about the level of respect that I had for my parents, for my teachers, for the police, for anyone in service, then those people were held in high esteem. In fact, even at one stage, the bank manager you had to have a respect for,
Sure.
would you believe? But then I've seen over the years that change. Now, one of the things, just a simple thing, a simple example is I was taught that if you're on public transport and if a woman got on the train or the bus you're on and maybe she was pregnant, maybe not, or if somebody elderly got on and you had the chair, then you would get up and give that to.
Sure. I'm just going to paraphrase here, Warren. You're speaking about respect. You're saying, I guess, back in your day, or years back, it was a bit better. The respect was there. Now there isn't as much respect. Do you think are you getting at there's a correlation between respect now and the high levels of abuse and violence? Is that what you're trying to say?
I think what I'm saying is I think that the level of respect we have for people
Yeah.
has allowed abuse and violence to grow because we've just accepted that it has been a social change, I guess.
Sure.
Now I don't have anything to back that up. It's just it's my intuitively feeling. But I see. I give an example. Just the other day, and there was a cutting here. I don't have it with me right now, but there's a cutting in the newspaper from last week from the Daily Telegraph, and it talked about teachers,
Yeah.
female teachers, leaving the industry.
Yeah.
And these teachers were saying that they were leaving the industry primarily because there was a lack of respect, that male boys
Yeah.
were talking about their body and making suggestive comments, making deep fake videos and posting it online, and things that, in terms of, if you go back a few years, if you did that, that would be seen as very disrespectful.
Yeah.
So here we have, and I have nieces who are been involved with the industry, and both of them have been subject to abuse in the classroom. So I think, for me, there's been a lack of that. There's been a deterioration, I guess, in the sort of standards of respect. But I think and I think for me, I can see the change, and I can understand why, from your perspective, it's not quite as clear.
Sure. I can see. Yeah. I disagree, Warren.
Yep.
I
Okay.
not wholeheartedly.
Yep.
I'm open to an idea about it, but respect's changing. You spoke about like the train situation. You get up when there's a woman who's pregnant. Yeah, I mean that's what the sign says, or someone who like physically needs it more than you, whether it be a disability or whatever. It gives you those prompts. But I think it's a day and age where it's like, no matter if you're a guy or girl, like a girl shouldn't get that seat more than a guy should. Was I taught that? I was taught just like get up, and I feel pretty able, so I'll always get up regardless. But no guy should ever feel the need to get up if it's just on the basis it's a girl. And I think that view is changing now. That has nothing. You could even argue it's disrespectful to do that because she's a girl. So it's how you want to look at it. I think that's more perspective based. As for, you touched up on like, going to the game where atmosphere is high. I agree. It's never okay to like abuse the ref or like other people. Has that changed that much? Maybe. I can't speak too much on it, but I do think there's no place for violence there. I don't think, maybe you can correlate that kind of violent tendencies, or is it violent or is it just like anger or passion? I guess it's how far you go. And I think it's knowing the line. What line do you draw? Because I've played sport and I talk so much crap, but then there's a line, right? And by crap, I'm like, messing with the other player. Actually, weirdly, my thing was playing a lot of soccer or football. I don't know how much hate I'll get for calling it soccer or football. But I'll just like have a chat with whoever's marking me or I'm marking because
You're a bit of a sledger, eh?
no, none of that. But I think it's hard to say with things like that, and it's how do I phrase it? I think it's always been a problem, but what we're tackling now is the individual. Like that is definitely something everyone should work on with. It's not okay to throw stuff at players. It never is, but it's normalized. And that's a whole nother issue that we're not going to be the ones to stop that. But I mean, we can say it's bad, but here and now we're just focusing on the individual. Like we're looking at the viewers and we're saying, how can we help? And that's mainly just through education. So, yeah, I think respect has a big play. However, yeah, that big tier stuff of like changing how, everyone lining up neatly, picking up their rubbish at these sporting events. Yeah, we've got a long way, I think, Warren. But a good point.
Well, as you can see, I think Levi and I have some views which might be a little bit different. But I think that's fine because we're trying to bring you a sort of an intergenerational perspective. So it's good to sort of compare and I'm at the end of my career, like in terms of my experiences, and it's just interesting when I sort of reflect back and think about things that are different today than what they were in my day. Well, Levi, we've covered a lot of ground so far, and we've only just started. But look, in terms of setting the agenda, I guess for our future conversations, we've got a lot of different ideas. So, Levi, can you just sort of give us a sense of the types of things we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, definitely. It's important to, I guess, note that this episode's kind of just get to know you. So if you guys have any questions, please raise them, or if you want to know a little bit more about us, you can email us at goodmenproject@hca.org.au. And like what you were asking, what's to come, we have a lot in store for people. We were quite general here, but the next topics that we'll have each episode will be more honing in on what, I guess, abuse may be. We're going to have lots of guests who've both been a perpetrator, a victim, those who work closely with perpetrators and victims, and I guess the police is going to be making one of the police officers going to be making an appearance. But in terms of, I guess, what exactly is going to be spoken about, I think it's just to come is the stats, and it gives us a chance to talk more about what is happening. And this will be happening next episode, where we're just going to be talking with one of our guests about what's really happening, what's fact, what's fiction, where do we stand, what was it like for you growing up, what is it like for me still growing up, and yeah, I guess we'll just talk more along the lines there. If you guys have any questions you'd like to ask for that episode, please again send us an email, and we would love to address it. Well, how about you, Warren? Well, did I miss anything?
No, that's pretty comprehensive. I guess there's a lot there, and I think the one important thing I just mentioned there is that there's going to be different guests at each of the conversations, and they are more the expert than Levi and I are. I guess treat us as a facilitator. We're just trying to facilitate the conversation. And also encourage you guys at home to start having conversations with your mates as well. And that's really important. I think it's probably important just to think about what comes next. And the next episode, or next conversation as we're calling it, is coming up soon. And I just want to give you guys at home a bit of a heads up and give you a little bit of homework, I guess, to focus on. So we're going to be focusing in that conversation around myths in terms of what are the myths surrounding this whole issue in Australia. So the first myth we're going to present, and we'll have a guest here, and he'll be more qualified to answer this than and tell us whether it's fact or fiction. So the first myth we want to give you guys to think about is, and let me just read this because I just want to get it right for you, and we'll put it on the screen, I think, hopefully as well. In Australia, we don't have a problem with violence against women. Pretty broad statement.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you with it. Let me just repeat it so you got it in your brain. In Australia, we don't have a problem with violence against women. So when we get back together at the next conversation, we'll have someone to actually help us debunk that. And I'm looking forward to that conversation. So for now, guys, I'm Warren. This has been an episode of Good Men Don't, and I look forward to welcoming you to our next program shortly. Levi.
Yes. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure just having a chat, getting to know you guys. I hope we, shared a little bit about yourselves so you know a bit about us. We look forward to chatting to you guys some more. That last question you raised, Warren, it got me thinking, and I want to start this next episode now, but we'll have to wait, and I look forward to our next episode. Just a reminder, if you would like to email us anything, it is at goodmenproject@hca.org.au. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. This podcast is for information and educational purposes. The views expressed by the host and their guests are their own views and do not constitute professional advice. Listeners should consult professionals for specific advice tailored to their needs. We make no representation or warranties concerning the accuracy, completeness, or applicability of the information in the podcast.